The war zone was cold and silent, filled with broken machines and twisted metal. Once, this place had been a battlefield between alien empires. Now only ghosts remained, and scavengers who were not afraid of dying. Jacques was one of them, a human. Drifter, he had no home, no mission, just a half-broken ship and a hunger for valuable junk. He moved carefully through the wreckage, eyes scanning for anything useful. A strange sound stopped him, a soft groan, like someone trying not to cry. He turned, hand on his plasma blade. There, sitting against a bent support beam, was a woman, but not a normal one. She was tall, with silver skin that shimmered even under dust. Her black armor cracked, her legs chained together, blood ran from her lip. But her eyes, they glowed violet and sharp like a beast that refused to die. "Are you alive?" Jacques asked, stepping closer. She gave a crooked smile. "Alive enough to joke," she whispered. Then she coughed, and blood came with it. "I used to rule 10 systems," she added, laughing bitterly. "Now I sit here like trash, waiting to rot." Jacques raised an eyebrow. "You're a queen? Ha ha. Restore my throne, and the Snuvva between my legs is all yours," she said with a smirk. But there was pain behind her smile, and her eyes were not joking. Jacques frowned, not sure if she was mad or telling the truth. She didn't look like royalty. But something about her posture felt noble. He checked the ground near her. No weapons, no food, nothing but blood and chains. "Who did this to you?" he asked. She looked away. "My own blood," she said quietly. "Jealousy, betrayal, and fear, that's what ends empires." Jacques wanted to leave. He didn't like getting involved, especially not with people hunted by powerful enemies. But something inside him wouldn't let him walk away. Maybe it was her eyes. Maybe it was how broken she looked. Or maybe, just maybe, he was lonely too. "Can you walk?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not far." Jacques sighed, dropped his bag, and knelt beside her. He pulled out a small medkit and began cleaning her wounds. "You got a name?" he asked. "Kelara," she said, wincing as he pressed against her side. "You?" "Jacques," he said. "Scavenger, nothing more," Kelara smiled. "Well, Scavenger Jacques, you're either brave or stupid." "Bit of both," he muttered suddenly. A red light flashed nearby. Jacques froze, then pulled out a small scanner. "Someone's coming," he said. "A hover bike, fast armed." Kelara's face turned grim. "Bounty hunters," she whispered. "They followed my trail." Jacques looked down at her. Then at the direction of the signal. He could run, save himself, leave her behind. But something in his gut screamed no. He grabbed his blaster and hid Kelara under a metal sheet. "Don't move," he said. Within moments, a sleek hoverbike slid into view. The rider wore black armor with red lights glowing from the chest. He dismounted, scanning the area. Jacques stepped out from cover. "Blaster ready." "You alone?" the rider asked. "Just scavenging," Jacques replied coolly. "Seen anyone else?" the rider demanded. "Dead bones and rusted bots," Jacques lied. The rider looked around, paused near the metal sheet hiding Kelara. He kicked it. Nothing moved. Then he shrugged and walked away. "You see her," he called back. "Tell your bosses she's worth a fortune." As the hoverbike sped off, Jacques let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He returned to Kelara, who was already pushing herself up weakly. "You protected me," she said, surprised. "Didn't feel like letting you die just yet," he answered, helping her stand. "You said your name is Kelara?" "Yes," Jacques narrowed his eyes. "That bounty hunter called you her," he said, "and said you were worth a fortune." Kelara looked at him with sad eyes. "Now do you believe I'm a queen?" she whispered. Then she collapsed in his arms. Jacques held her tightly, his mind spinning. What had he just gotten himself into? Jacques didn't sleep that night. The alien woman Kelara lay beside the dying fire, her breath shallow but steady. She didn't look like a queen anymore, but even while unconscious, her fingers curled like a fighter ready to strike. He watched her with mixed thoughts. What kind of woman joked about her body and the throne in the same breath? And why did he care enough to stay? Morning came too fast. The red sun rose over the burnt hills, lighting the broken battlefield in orange and gold. Jacques looked at his scanner. Again, the same signal blinked from the west, ruins, maybe a bunker, or an old data vault. He checked Kalara's pulse, then lifted her in his arms again. "You owe me a story," he said softly as he carried her. They reached the ruins by midday. A cracked metal gate blocked the way, covered in alien symbols. Jacques set her down gently, then searched the walls. A faded control panel sparked when he touched it. He tried guessing a code, nothing. He tried force, still nothing. Then Kalara's voice broke the silence. "Try blood," she whispered. He turned, surprised. "You're awake." "Barely," she said. "But the gate, it's ancient, locked to my family's DNA." Jacques looked at his bandaged hand, then at her. "You want me to bleed on it?" She nodded once, her lips dry. "If the system thinks you're me, maybe it'll open." He didn't understand, but he trusted her gut. He pressed his hand to the scanner. Let a drop of blood fall onto it. The gate blinked red, then yellow, then green. It hissed open slowly, the old metal crying out like it hadn't moved in a century. Inside, the air was thick and warm. Dim lights flickered as if surprised to see life again. Walls were covered in carvings, stars, war scenes, and a throne glowing under twin moons. Kalara dragged herself up, leaning on Jacques as they walked. "This is one of the vaults of queens," she whispered. "We stored knowledge here. Maps, bloodlines, secrets." Jacques helped her sit on a smooth stone seat. He looked around. "So you really were royal." "I still am," she said, then smiled bitterly. "Just without a throne, or crown, or soldiers." A circular pedestal rose from the floor, pulsing with soft blue light. Jacques stepped near it, and it responded, projecting a massive map in the air, stars, planets, and a blinking mark over one of them. Kalara's eyes widened. "That's it," she said. "That's the hidden chamber of my ancestors, the last path to the throne." But then the map shifted again. It displayed an old family tree, and to Jacques' shock, his name appeared at the edge. He stared, frozen. "What the hell is this?" Kalara's voice dropped. "You're not just human. That's impossible," he said, shaking his head. "My parents were colonists from Earth." "Maybe," she whispered. "Or maybe one of your ancestors was exiled from here long ago." The vault pulsed again. As if recognizing him, Kalara stood slowly, trembling. "You may be connected to the royal bloodline," she said. "That's why the gate opened for you." Jacques backed away from the light. "I don't want to be part of your throne war." She looked at him, eyes calm but burning. "You already are." Before he could answer, the ground shook. An alarm blared across the vault. Kalara's face turned pale. "They found us." Jacques grabbed her arm. "Move now." They rushed out the gate just before it slammed shut again. Above them, the sky darkened, and a black ship hovered, its engines screaming. Bounty hunters again, but this time, more of them, better armed, more serious. Kalara pulled a small device from her armor, tapped a few buttons. A pulse of blue energy shot upward, slamming the ship's scanner. "Run!" she gasped. They sprinted through the ruins, energy bolts chasing them. Jacques ducked behind a broken wall, returned fire with sharp aim. Kalara collapsed beside him, blood leaking from her side again. He covered her with his jacket, then tossed a grenade behind them. The explosion lit the sky, giving them just enough time to escape into the canyon below. They slid down the rocky path, breathless, desperate. At the bottom, Jacques pulled her close, heart racing. "What now?" he asked. Kalara smiled faintly through pain. "Now we follow the map," she said, "and make your joke of a bloodline into something real." Jacques wanted to argue, to say he didn't believe in thrones or bloodlines, but he looked at her burned, hunted, stubborn, and he couldn't leave her, not anymore. Above them, the black ship circled once, then flew away, but they both knew it would return, and next time it wouldn't come alone. The market smelled like smoke, grease, and lies. Colorful lights flashed above crooked stalls, and music played from broken speakers. People of all kinds moved through the narrow streets, aliens, smugglers, thieves, and desperate travelers. It was the perfect place to disappear, and the perfect place to get stabbed in the back. Jax walked with Kaylara under a loose cloak, her arms still weak around his shoulder. They had traveled for 2 days through dangerous lands just to reach this place. Her body was healing, but slowly, and her eyes were always scanning, watching. Remembering, she looked different now, her hair tied back, her royal posture hidden under dirty cloth. But her spirit hadn't changed, even half-conscious. She still gave orders like a queen. They entered a quiet section of the market, one filled with junk, spare ship parts, and fake ID sellers. Jax checked a small device blinking green. "This is the place," he whispered. "Your old friend's shop," Kaylara nodded weakly. "Durakai. He used to fly under my banners. He was loyal once." They stepped inside a dark shop, lit by red lanterns. The tall alien behind the counter turned around slowly. He had a scar across his face and robotic fingers. For a moment, he said nothing. Then his mouth twisted into a crooked smile. "Kaylara," he said. "You're alive." Her lips curled slightly. "Disappointed?" He laughed, shaking his head. Surprised is all. He looked at Jax, then back at her. "And who's this? Your new bodyguard or your new toy?" Jax didn't answer, but his hand hovered close to his blaster. Durakai raised his palms. "Relax, human. I meant no insult." Kaylara stepped forward, ignoring the pain. "We need a ship, unregistered." Fast, Durakai looked thoughtful. "That kind of ship comes with a price." "Name it," she said. He leaned closer, voice low. "Tell me the location of the vault you came from." Kaylara's eyes froze. She hadn't told anyone where they'd been, not even Durakai. Only one way he could have known. Her spine went cold, her heart slower, heavier. "You set the tracker," she said quietly. "You're the reason they found us." Durakai didn't deny it. "I thought you were dead," he said. "And even if you weren't, you're not queen anymore." He pulled out a small device and pressed it. Behind them, the door locked with a loud hiss. Then several armed men stepped out from the shadows. Blasters ready, eyes cold. Kaylara's legs gave out, but Jax caught her. His voice was low and angry. "You sold her out for what? Credits?" Durakai shrugged. "For survival." Jax pulled his blaster and fired. The first guard fell before he could even raise his gun. Kaylara rolled under a table, grabbing a metal rod with shaky hands. Another guard fired at Jax, grazing his shoulder. Jax didn't flinch. He moved fast, smooth, taking down 2 more in seconds. Kaylara threw the rod, hitting one man in the face before he could shoot. Blood and fire filled the shop, chaos in every corner. Durakai cursed and ran toward the back door, but Jax caught him, slammed him against the wall. "You said you were her friend," he growled. "I was," Durakai gasped. "But friends don't keep crowns when their empires fall." Jax punched him hard, once, and Durakai dropped like a stone. Kaylara stood slowly, breathing hard, blood dripping from her lip again. She looked at Jax, her voice trembling. "You didn't leave me." He helped her walk, kicking open the side door. "I'm starting to think I'm crazy," he said. "But I don't care." They limped into the alley, sirens already sounding nearby. Jax pushed her behind a stack of crates, loading a fresh charge into his weapon. Kaylara leaned back, eyes closed, whispering. "I used to believe loyalty was a myth. Still might be," Jax said. "But I'm not done proving it wrong." From behind the crates, a small shadow moved. A child, a half-human, half-alien boy peeked out, holding a small tracker. He looked at them, then smiled strangely. Kaylara stared at him, confused. The boy spoke in a language she hadn't heard since childhood. She froze, then whispered back in the same tongue, her voice shaking. Jax watched silently as her eyes filled with tears. "Who is he?" he asked softly. She turned to him, trembling. "He's my blood," she said. "He's from the hidden line." Before Jocks could ask what that meant, the ground shook again. A dark ship hovered overhead, the same black insignia glowing under its hull. The bounty hunters had returned, but this time they weren't coming to capture, they were coming to kill. Kalara took the boy's hand and looked at Jocks. "Protect him," she said. "He's the map now." Jocks didn't ask questions, he simply nodded. And as the city shook with sirens and the shadows of death closed in, the exiled queen, the stranger, human, and the secret child disappeared into the fire once again. The sky opened like a wound above them. Red clouds split apart as a royal warship drew the storm. Its engine screamed, loud enough to shake the ground. Lights flashed across the ruins, and dust rose from the earth like smoke. Jocks didn't hesitate. He threw himself over Kalara and the boy, shielding them as lasers cracked through the air. A nearby wall exploded, chunks of stone falling inches from his head. They were out of time, out of space, and nearly out of luck. The boy clutched Kalara's arm, trembling. She whispered something in his ear soft. Ancient words Jocks couldn't understand, but the boy nodded, and his eyes began to glow faintly. Jocks saw it and almost missed a blast coming their way. He rolled them behind a broken shuttle, panting. "That's not just a kid, is it?" he said. Kalara's lips were pale, but she managed a nod. "He carries the legacy of my hidden ancestors," she said. "He's more important than I ever was." Another explosion tore through the street. Jocks scanned the sky, watching the warship hover lower. "Why is it after him?" he asked. "They want to erase the line," Kalara said. "If he dies, the blood of truth ends with him." Jocks checked the old cum link on his wrist. No signal, no help, nothing but static. "We need a way out," he muttered. "Now the boy tugged his sleeve. Without saying a word, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed bright blue and pulsed like a heartbeat. "What is that?" Jocks asked, eyes wide. "The last key," Kalara said. "It activates something ancient, something that only responds to our blood." Suddenly the earth rumbled beneath them, not from the warship, but from below. The boy held the crystal high, and the ground split open in front of them. A spiral staircase, glowing with the same light, appeared in the middle of the street. Jocks didn't ask questions anymore. He grabbed Kalara and the boy, and they rushed down into the darkness behind them. The enemy ship fired again, but the energy seemed to bend around the opening, as if it couldn't touch what was hidden. Below, they ran down the glowing stairs until the sound of war faded. The air became cooler, heavier, filled with energy and old echoes. At the bottom stood a massive round chamber. In the center was a platform made of smooth crystal, floating. Above nothing. Kalara reached out, fingers shaking. "This is where the last royal pilots were tested," she said, "before the throne chose its next protector." Jocks stepped onto the platform, expecting to fall, but it held him. A hum rose through the air, deep and strange, the walls lit up with images, memories, battles, old kings and queens, and among them, a human face familiar, almost like his own. Kalara stared at it in shock. "That's not you," she said slowly. "But he has your eyes," Jocks stared, his chest tight. It was a face from generations ago, but the resemblance was clear. "My blood really comes from here," he whispered. Suddenly the crystal in the boy's hand flew forward. It snapped into the center of the platform like a missing piece. Everything stopped for a moment. Then the floor began to rise, taking them up, higher, faster. They didn't return to the surface. They emerged into the sky itself, on top of a hidden tower. Camouflaged from sight, far above the battlefield, hidden even from scanners, above them. A single ancient craft hovered silent, silver, untouched by time. Kalara stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "The Royal Skyblade," she whispered. "It was said only true heirs could command it." The ship opened its ramp with a soft hiss. Jocks looked at her, then at the boy. "Do we fly it, or does it fly us?" he asked. Kalara gave a small smile. "Let's find out." They boarded the ship, and the doors closed behind them. Inside, lights glowed soft and warm. The pilot chair adjusted itself to Jox's shape without touch. He sat down, heart racing. Hands trembling, the ship's voice spoke, calm and old. Bloodline verified. Welcome home. Jox looked at Kaylara, shocked. She stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. I thought I was the last, she whispered. But maybe. You were always meant to finish what I couldn't. Outside, the warship noticed them, turned toward them, and charged its weapons. Jox gripped the controls, and the ship responded instantly fast. Smooth, alive, it shot forward like a thunderbolt. Spinning past laser blasts, dancing between death, Kaylara held the boy tight, her heart pounding. Jox flew like the skies belonged to him. He moved like someone born in stars, not on dirt, and for the first time in years, Kaylara didn't feel like a fallen queen. She felt like someone rising again. The enemy ship exploded behind them as the Royal Skyblade vanished into the clouds, but far below, deep in the ruins, the true enemy watched through a long-range lens. His face was calm, but his eyes burned. Let them fly, he said coldly. They can't escape what's waiting at the throne. The old throne didn't need guards. It guarded itself. Ray stood in front of it, frozen, watching the ancient seat glow with light that moved like fire trapped in glass. Vexa stepped forward slowly, her breath shaking. The throne pulsed once, and her knees gave out. She caught herself on the edge of a pillar, eyes wide. It remembers me, she whispered. Ray didn't like how the throne seemed alive, watching, judging. What do you mean it remembers? He asked. Vexa touched her chest, where her skin glowed with a faint symbol. My blood once ruled this empire, she said. And this throne doesn't forget. She took another step, and the glow spread across the floor. Symbols lit up around them in a circle, and the air became heavier. The throne spoke not in words, but in sound, a low vibration that rattled Ray's bones. Suddenly, the room changed. The walls shifted. The lights darkened, and something rose from beneath the throne. A figure formed tall, robed, its face hidden under a mask. Not real, not solid, but terrifying. Ray raised his weapon, but it passed through the image. Vexa stared at it with wide eyes. That's the first voice, she said. The throne's final defense. The figure looked at her, then at Ray. It didn't speak in any language, but both of them understood. It asked a question that didn't need words. Do you claim the throne with truth, or do you seek power with lies? Vexa looked down, her voice shaking. I claim it to stop what we started. The figure turned to Ray. And do you stand with her or against her? Ray didn't blink. I stand where I have to, he said, and right now. That's with her. The figure faded, and the light returned. But Vexa was no longer standing. She had collapsed beside the throne. Clutching her head, Ray rushed to her side. Vexa, he shouted. What's wrong? Her body shook, her veins glowing blue. The throne was pulling something from her. Some connection too deep to cut. She opened her eyes for a second, and they didn't look like her eyes anymore. I see it, she whispered. The Snuvva. It's behind the throne. Ray looked up just as a section of the wall slid open, revealing a dark corridor. He didn't like it, but he carried Vexa in his arms and followed the path. Inside, the air was colder, older, and full of voices, whispers. That made his skin crawl. They reached a large chamber beneath the throne. At the center floated a black crystal, cracked, humming, alive. It pulsed every few seconds like a heart, and every time it did, Ray felt his own heart skip. K3ZI's voice came through his wrist device, faint and distorted. Get out of there. Human. That's not just a power source, that's a mind. Ray didn't move. He set Vexa down carefully and stepped toward the crystal. His marks began to glow, reacting to the thing in front of him. Then a voice filled the room, not from a speaker, but from inside his mind. You brought her to me. It said, now I will complete the circle. Ray shouted back. Who are you? I am what was left behind, the voice answered. The Snuvva is not a name, it's a hunger. The crystal began to change, forming a shape with arms. A face made of light and shadow. Ray stood ready, weapon in hand, but the thing only smiled. "You opened the door, human," it said. "You carry my mark, and now you carry my fate." Behind him, Vexa stirred, her voice barely a whisper. "Ray, don't listen to it. It lies." But the voice grew louder. "She was made to break thrones." It said, "You were made to build them." Ray fired his rifle, but the bolt disappeared into the thing's chest without a sound. The Snuvva's figure walked toward him, slow, calm. "Soon you will understand," it said. "The throne cannot be restored without sacrifice." Suddenly, the ground cracked beneath their feet. Energy poured from the crystal, and the room began to collapse. Ray grabbed Vexa and ran, sprinting back toward the throne room. The walls shook, symbols flashing faster than his eyes could follow. They reached the main hall just as the floor behind them fell away into fire. Vexa gasped, waking up fully. "It's awake," she said. "We were too late." Ray looked at the throne. It was glowing brighter than before, and it no longer looked like a seat of power. It looked like a warning, and deep below, the Snuvva laughed, not loud but enough for the stars to hear. The door locked behind him without warning. Ray spun around and slammed his fist on the control panel. It didn't budge. Through the thick glass, he saw Vexa on the other side, just standing there. No panic in her eyes, no fear, just silence. "Vexa," he shouted, "what are you doing?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pressed her hand to the panel slowly. A voice echoed through the chamber, not hers, but K3Zi's. "Apologies, human. This decision was not yours to make." Ray gritted his teeth. "I swear, if you betray me now, I already have," the AI said calmly. "Protocol 17 has been activated by the air." Ray turned back, the floor beneath him glowing in strange patterns. The symbols on his skin burned like fire. In the corner of the chamber, a large machine unfolded itself like a metal spider. Arms reached toward him, scanning, searching. A quiet hum filled the air, rising steadily. Outside the chamber, Vexa finally spoke. "You have to understand," she said, her voice soft through the intercom. "This machine wasn't made to kill you. It was made to turn you into something more." Ray took a step back. "Did you just lock me in a transformation pod?" Vexa closed her eyes. "Not transformation," she said. "Activation." The spider machine lunged, and Ray dodged the first grab, but the second arm caught his shoulder and pinned him to the ground. Energy flowed into his skin, and his eyes rolled back for a moment. He saw flashes, stars dying, empires burning, the Snuvva floating above all of it. Laughing, he saw Vexa, wearing a crown of flame, standing alone on a mountain of ash. And then he saw himself cold, glowing, empty. Ray shouted through the pain. "You could have told me the truth," Vexa answered, tears in her eyes. "If I had, you never would have come this far." The machine finished its work and retreated into the walls. Ray collapsed, panting, his body trembling. But the marks were different now. Deeper, almost alive. K3ZI spoke again, voice lower this time. "Integration complete. The human is now a living key." The door opened with a slow hiss, and Vexa stepped in. She didn't look proud, just tired. Ray stood up, barely able to hold himself steady. "You used me," he said. "I saved you," she whispered. "From what?" He growled, "From being powerless," before Ray could reply. A red alert lit up across the ship's walls. K3Zi's voice boomed. "Enemy fleet approaching. Their weapons are locked on us." Vexa turned toward the throne. "They know we're here," she said. "They want the Snuvva before it fully bonds with you." Ray looked down at his hands. Energy swirled around them like smoke. He could feel something inside him, something massive. "Can I even control this?" he asked. "No," Vexa said, "but I can." That was when the betrayal truly hit. Ray's blood ran cold. "You're not planning to destroy the Snuvva," he said. "You're planning to use it." Vexa didn't deny it. She looked at him. with ancient sadness. "My people are dead, my empire is dust," she said. "But with you, I can build something new." Ray backed away. "I'm not your weapon," he said. Vexa stepped closer. "No," she said softly, "you're my partner." Outside, ships began firing, shaking the ground. K3ZI yelled over the rumble. "We're out of time, make a choice." Ray's eyes glowed brighter now, his skin humming with energy. The marks on his body pulsed in rhythm with the throne. He looked at Vexa, the woman who betrayed him and saved him in the same breath. "I make my own choices now," Ray said, and then he stepped onto the throne. It responded instantly, wrapping him in light. The rebel fleet outside stopped firing, because they saw something rising from the capital, not a ship, not a weapon, a man, glowing with power older than stars. And beside him, the last daughter of a fallen empire. The sky cracked like glass. Above the capital, the stars seemed to pull back in fear as Ray rose into the air. Wings of energy unfolded from his back, not real wings, but made of light and memory and fire. The rebel fleet stopped mid-attack, their pilots frozen by the sight. Some ships turned away, fleeing without orders. Others aimed their cannons at him, but none dared to fire. Vexa stood below, her cloak whipping in the wind, her eyes never leaving him. She whispered something that only he could hear. "Don't burn yourself for a world that never wanted you." Ray could feel the throne's full power inside him now. He could feel every heartbeat on the planet. He could hear the soil hum and the old bones of the city whisper. He felt like a god, and it terrified him. The Snuvva spoke inside his mind again, this time clearly. "I gave them power, and they turned it into chains," Ray answered with a thought. "Then I'll break every one of them." The air around him turned gold as the throne linked itself to the ruins below. Old buildings came alive, ancient towers began to glow. The city remembered its name, Valtheran. Commander Graux appeared in a giant walker, screaming orders into the wind. "Kill him, kill them both." Ray didn't even move. With a wave of his hand, the walker crumbled into dust. Graux was gone in a blink, nothing left but silence. Vexa stepped forward as fire rained from the sky. She walked through it like it wasn't there. The energy from the amplifier still danced along her skin. She was no longer just a princess. She was the echo of 1,000 queens. Ray descended slowly, the light fading from his body as his feet touched the ground. Vexa walked up to him, placing her hand gently on his chest. "You did it," she said. "No," he whispered. "We did." She leaned closer, her voice trembling. "You still don't understand, do you?" He looked into her eyes, glowing faintly. "Understand what?" "That you're the Snuvva now," she said. "You're not holding its power, you became it." Ray's breath caught in his throat. "I don't want that," he said. "You never had a choice." She whispered. "None of us did." The ground rumbled. Soft at first, then louder. From below the city, a second presence rose cold and endless. It had felt the shift, and it didn't like being forgotten. The original Snuvva, or what remained of it, had awakened. Ray turned, his hands glowing again. "I can stop it," he said. Vexa shook her head. "You can't fight it." Ray stepped forward anyway. "Then I'll merge with it." The air cracked, and a hole tore open in the sky. Out of it came darkness wrapped in light, a storm with eyes. Ray ran straight into it. The throne's voice screamed inside his mind, but he didn't stop. He touched the core of the creature, and for a moment, all of time stood still. He saw Vexa as a child, laughing in gardens that no longer existed. He saw Earth from space, tiny and blue. He saw himself, not as a warrior, but as a man who always chose others before himself. And the Snuvva saw that too. It bent, it changed, it stopped fighting. Ray didn't destroy it, he gave it peace. The storm collapsed, the sky cleared, and Ray fell from above. Vexa caught him in her arms, her knees hitting the broken stone. His eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly but full of life. "Did it work?" he asked, voice weak. She nodded, tears falling freely. "You ended the war." The city began to rebuild itself slowly, towers rising like plants after rain. People came out from hiding, and for the first time in years they looked up without fear. Ray sat beside the ancient throne and looked at Vexa. "So," he said, smiling faintly, "do I get what you promised me?" Vexa raised a brow, pretending not to remember. "What promise?" He leaned closer. "Something about a Snuvva between your legs." She laughed, bright and unguarded. "That was just a joke," she said. "Yeah," he replied. "But some jokes start wars." She took his hand, laced her fingers with his. "And sometimes," she whispered, "they end them."